Almost, almost. All right. So welcome to Tuesday Notary Titans for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. We're going to jump right in and start answering some questions. I saw some hands up right away. So when we ask a question, tell us what state you're in, ask your question. If we need more backup information, we'll ask for it. Texas, Carlton, Hayden, thanks so much for being here. What's going on today?
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Excellent.
All right. Hey, so this might be a slow pitch for you, but just kind of what would Bill do? Identification question. So I had a closing today, and this was a second closing for the same person. So at the previous closing, I'd already ID'd her. I know who she is. So at the second one, I used, she had her identification with her, but I used personally known. So would you say that's okay for someone you're doing a transaction for the second time?
That's a really great question. And, this can be state specific too. And I know even in like Arizona, we have rules that says if we've validated the ID within 6 months, we don't necessarily have to go through all this. But I don't do any of that. I like to do a best practice. I like to take the ID and document the identification every single time. That's my preference. Laura, what do you say?
Yeah, first of all, we can't even use personally known in California, so we're out of that completely. But for the other 49 states that are allowed, I would tell you this, that most of the definitions I find provided behind the scenes from Secretary of State offices is that you have known them long enough and have met with them often enough under different circumstances that you would risk your own reputation if they're not who they say they are. So personally, if I met them one time for a loan signing, I don't know them. I don't personally know them. If I knew them before that signing because we go to the same church, we bank at the same bank, our kids play together, we live in the same neighborhood, there's other points of connection with that person, that would qualify for personally known. And that's pretty typical of most states. If you're going to use personally known, they're expecting you to really know them, not know of them. And there's a difference between the two.
Carol, do you have any feedback on that?
I do. I agree with both of you. I right away from the very beginning of Notary to Pro, I say to my students, when it says personally known, it means that kids go to school together, they play together, you go to church, you go to the market, that these are people that you genuinely know. If you don't know them that way, you don't really know them. And I would never use personally known, even if your state allows it.
Carlton, here's the way I justify this is number one, I don't think it saves enough time to risk my commission on. And remember, we're not talking about just a $100 appointment. We're talking about your entire commission. So every penny of revenue that you generate in your business is reliant on this one decision. And to me, it just doesn't justify going through that.
Thanks for the input, guys.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for bringing that up. We don't hear that one very often.
We don't. You know what, Bill? I just want to add that right now, I mean, some of you may know that I serve as an expert witness in my state when a lawsuit comes up. And I'm serving as one now, and it's on identification. And the notary, it was 3 different deeds across 9 different properties that came out to $2.3 million, and they were imposters.
Oh.
Yeah, it's bad news, very bad news for this notary. And I just have to say that no matter what all the rules are, the single most important thing we do is verify that person. And if we fail at our prime objective, we don't belong being a notary. And this notary will probably not be a notary after this is all said and done because of, shortcuts that, he took with it. So I just have to say, if you're brand new, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this to reinforce the importance of taking your time with the identification process. And even if you think you know them, look at the ID, to support it. It takes an extra few seconds. I just don't want to see somebody else go through what this notary is now going to go through.
I'd like to add something to that also. When you're checking the identification, I find that a lot of people will take the ID, they'll copy down the number, put the information in their journal. They do not look at the description of that person. They don't look at the weight, the height. They just look at the numbers, and that's not what you want to do. You want to check that out. Look for bubbles on the back of that. Look for anything that looks strange with the pictures, because if you do that, you're really doing your job. It's not a matter of copying down the number. You have to really verify them.
Yeah, and I think that gets a little taken for granted. Number one, because especially in the beginning, you're in a stranger's house or a garbage can lid or a dumpster or a trunk of a car, whatever it might be for you these days. And you've got people staring at you and you feel that internal pressure coming on. But it's really important to acknowledge that your number one role is to prevent identity fraud and identity theft and mortgage fraud. So you've got to own that particular role. You've got to get over that relatively quickly. And if you've got to practice ahead of time, it's worth it. Yes, Thad says, act like a bouncer at the door. Yes, act like the most hardcore bouncer at the door that won't let anybody in with any discrepancies in the ID. Karen Singleton, thank you so much for being here. Tell us what state you're in and how we can help.
Hi, good afternoon. How you doing?
Excellent, thanks. How can we help?
Okay, so I am from Georgia. I just moved here a month ago from Florida. And I received my first signing Friday, this past Friday, and it was direct through a title company. And Georgia's an attorney state, so there was an attorney present via phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so how they do is they go through all the documents that convey title. They explain it, the client signs it, and everything. My question is one of the documents that that the client had to sign and I had to notarize was the indemnity agreement. And on this particular agreement, it didn't have the client's name on it. It had no name. It was basically just a blank form. And so my initial reaction to that, and at this point, the attorney is no longer on the phone because she got off the phone after she went through all the documents that had to be explained and by an attorney. So my concern was there was no name. The client's name wasn't on it. There was no one's name on it. So I initially told the client that I didn't think the form pertained to her and that we were not going to complete it. But afterwards, because it could be between the title company and whoever, right? But afterwards, I had decided to have her sign it, so that I can give the title company a blank copy if it wasn't for her to sign, and one that had her signature on it, just in case, so that I would not hold up the process. So was that the correct thing to do?
Yeah, it's tough to say without seeing the document. Carol, do you have an initial thought?
Yeah, I do. I've been really pushing this lately. We need to let the documents talk to us. We need to look at those documents and we have to decipher for ourselves if they're supposed to be signed. In most cases, if there's no signature lines or there's no name under the signature lines, read the document. And of course, my students can call me and Bill. I know they can call you and Laura. But if we would just look at those documents and let them tell us that if there's no notarial certificate on that document, then don't notarize it. If there's a notarial certificate on it and nobody is signing it, don't notarize it. So let those documents talk to you. There are documents that are in question, and that's when you need to call somebody. Don't take it on your own initiative to have it signed. Look for help from somebody. Any one of us, I'm sure, could probably help. share that document, but let it be your guide.
Yeah, I tried to call the attorney back, but it was because it was a night signing. The signing took place at 7:30 at night. So by the time the attorney finished with the client, it was like 8 o'clock or so. And then by the time I got to the rest of the document, got to that document, it was closer to something to 9. So when I tried to call the attorney back, she didn't answer.
So let's, Carol, what do you think about the way Karen handled it? She went ahead and she just had the borrower sign it, notarized it. So it's taken care of ahead of time. Do you agree that's the way to handle something like that?
I think she did right, because if it was really in question as to whether or not it should be signed and notarized, it's real simple for them to throw it away and use a blank.
Laura, what's your take on this?
Well, yeah, on the second part, which is how she dealt with it, I would have dealt with it similarly, in that I would take the extra copy and give them one way and the other way. And then they could figure out which way they needed it. That way I don't hold anything up. In terms of trying to decipher it, I just did one yesterday and it had that indemnity agreement on it. On page 1, there's several different lines depending on if they're the refinance owner, there's one for the contractor, and that's where they're going to put their address, right? And then over on page 2, if it's not legal size, it's hard to notice, but there's a by with a line and then another line right underneath it, and not even enough space to print. It's really a sign line and a print line. And then over on the other side, on the right side, that's on the left, on the right side, I would see subscribed and sworn, which doesn't work for me. I have to add my own, but for almost all their states, it works just fine. And if that's what you saw, then it was intended for them. I have them put their address on page 1. I have them sign and print their names in the right spots. And then I make them, take their oath, and there you go. I'm not seeing your document, but it sounds like one I see frequently in a package. Bill, does that sound like what you've seen?
Yeah. I've also
Well-
seen some where it's directed towards towards someone else too.
The insurance company, right? So that's why I was kind of confused, because this particular document, this indemnity agreement, is different from what you just explained, Laura. This
Okay.
one on page 1, it says the indemnification is made and given by blank, in a little line where you can't really write anything in there, and blank referred to here as the indemnitor, but it doesn't specify. I mean, it's a 5-page document. I've never seen it that long before. I've seen
Oh, yeah.
indemnity agreements, but I've never seen it that so many pages. It's a 5-page document, and the client's name is not on any page. There's not even what maybe the signature line, which was says indemnitor, and by, that could have been the signature line, and where they print their name. The name is not even on there either. So that's why I was referring to that the customer's name is nowhere on the document. The client's name is nowhere on the document.
Yeah.
Well, Karen, that is going to happen to us frequently in our business. And I think what Carol said of evaluating the document as best we can. And if we still can't figure that out, we need to reach out, which you did to the attorney. And if that doesn't work, is there anybody else you can reach out? And if that doesn't work, do it both ways. There you go.
do it
That
both
would be
ways.
my plan of action.
Exactly. So Karen, you handled this exactly perfectly. I think that document may have been intended for 2 other parties. Who knows?
Yeah.
You did everything you could to get a hold of the people who can make that decision for you, and then you overcame it. You're very resourceful. And guys, remember, adaptability, being able to adapt to weird situations, and resourcefulness is how you succeed with some amount of peace of mind in this business. So Karen, I think you did just great. Thank you for bringing that to us. And keep us posted too if you hear something differently.
Okay, I will.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. Randy Venters, thank you so much for being here. You want to tell us what state you're in and how we can help?
I'm in Washington, and my question is, I work with one signing company in particular that their system thinks that an appointment should only take 45 minutes. And 45 minutes after the appointment has started, I get a text message asking me to fill out a completion report. And then between an hour and an hour and 15 minutes after the appointment started, I get a phone call from that company asking me if the appointment has been finished. And if I tell them yes, then they tell me that they're going to close the file out. and but they want me to email or upload documents. And once in their system, once the file is closed out, I can't email documents, so that or I cannot upload documents. So then they tell me to email them, and I refuse to because email is not secure. And they say, oh, well, just put a password on it and then send a second email with a password. And I keep refusing to do that. I was wondering what advice you guys had.
Oh, well, I think there's a multi-question here too. So
Yeah.
I want to start with Laura and then Carol, because I'm hoping that you're going to talk about your secure email resource. But Laura, I'd like to hear your take on this.
Well, my first take, you guys are probably going to know, which is when somebody's telling me what to do,
Yeah.
then I don't need to be working with them. Now, not everybody is in that position to do the white glove test and say you failed and I'm not going to work with you, because that's not how I work. So that's why it's probably more important that Carol and Bill offer to that, because they don't know how long it's going to take us. We don't know. We have an idea. But when we get to the table, we don't know if they can't find their IDs. We don't know if they're going to have questions. We don't know what's going to delay us. And the signing service has no business bugging us like that. If they send a text, I think that's easy enough to ignore until you're done. When they call and now they're telling you to follow a method that you don't feel is a secure method, I don't want to work with a company that's asking me to do something in an insecure manner. But I think Carol might have an answer for you.
Yeah, as far as the solution goes,
Yeah.
Carol, what do you say?
Yeah, well, I agree with you guys that sending that back, protected is of utmost importance. And I wouldn't work for a company that did that either. But there is something called Our Records that has been offered to our graduates for years now, and I absolutely love it. It's available to everybody. It will cost, our students get a nice discount, but what this is a portal where you can upload documents and you just type in an email. You can type it to yourself and to the receiving company. And it takes seconds to just upload it, and it scans it securely so that nobody can get into it, nobody have it, because it's all encrypted. And the company that receives it they'll get a notification that they have an email from you. And there's the documents available to them. They pull them off and they're all encrypted. And then when they actually download them, then they can, read them and reprint them. I definitely would not do anything. Don't even take a chance if somebody tells you to not use something that's encrypted and safe, because you're the one they're going to come after if there's a problem. And if you do use this, I like the idea that my students can send the documents to themselves as well, and they're always there for them. If there's ever a situation that comes up where they question what they received or what they didn't receive, then you've got proof of what they received.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Thank you, Laura and Carol. Both of you gave me the exact perspectives I was hoping you would. And I just want to add something here too, guys. This company that is being described, that Randy's talking about, may very well be what's considered a 5-star rated company. They may pay decent, they may pay on time, but they micromanage. And I think this is really important, because I get asked this question all the time. Just tell me the best companies to sign up for. And that doesn't exist. This is a very personal decision about who you want to work with. Just because somebody pays well and pays on time does not mean that you want to work with them. This is why we recommend that you sign up with 100 different companies. It's not so you can manage 100 different companies. It's so you can find the companies that you enjoy working with and that enjoy working with you. Because if Randy, I'm right with Laura, like if somebody started micromanaging me and telling me how long my signings needed to be, we would not be doing business. Because it is 100% up to, well, not 100%, but it's 80% up to the borrower on how long they want to take for their signings. I can make things as efficient as possible. I can set them up for success. I can kind of mold it exactly how I want it to go. But if they want it to go a different way, that's the way it's going. Great question.
Yep.
Randy, did we help?
Yes, thank you.
You bet. Laura, any word?
No, that wasn't the
Oh,
word.
oh,
I was hoping, but that wasn't it.
All
Wrong
right.
word.
Sid Marsh, thank you so much for being here. You want to unmute? Tell us what state you're in and how we can help.
I'm in California, and I just have a couple of simple questions. I just done my first 2 signing, and I was wondering about invoicing. Should I invoice right away, or do I wait the 14 or 30 days that it takes them to pay and then invoice, or what?
No, so for me, I think the point of an invoice is to say, hey, okay, service has been completed. Now you owe this amount. So it might sit on their desk or on their books for a little while per their payment policies, but I invoice right away. In fact, that's one of the top 5 things I do after every single appointment is invoice. And some of my clients, like I work escrow direct, so they need an invoice right away. I'm getting paid out of those transactions usually, or they, for compliance reasons, need it. With signing companies, it might be a little bit different, right? Some of them say, don't even invoice, we've got it all taken care of, but you're still going to want some sort of internal tracking system. So I recommend you send an invoice and do it right away. If you make that part of your post-signing or post-appointment rituals, then you'll do it every single time and it doesn't build up. That's my recommendation. Carol, Laura, any other suggestions?
Bill right away.
Bill right away.
That's what I can say. And if you don't stay on top, and make sure you run an aging report. If you're
Right.
using Notary Assist, they have one. I'm sure Notary Gadget has one, but run that aging report to make sure that it isn't getting out of hand.
Notary
have-
Assist, I agree. They,
Yeah,
they,
I just signed up with Notary Assist. So
oh,
yeah.
you'll love it. Yeah.
And I had one other question. I'm having problems with legal and letter printing. I have a 2-drawer printer. It's a Brother 5200, yeah. But I'm having problems.
Yeah.
Is there?
So there was
I
a
wonder if it was that problem that many
Yeah.
of us had.
It's a
You know what,
recent
Sid?
update.
If you email me, I'll send you the answer that I got. It was because of an update. And it was a very easy fix. I mean, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it fixed it for me. Let's see if that fixes it for you as
Okay.
well.
I hate to say this, but I know that Laura and Bill both are all for the Brother 5200. But I gotta say, I get 3-4 calls every single week with problems from my students and they can't get it to work. One of them, they said there was a driver that had to be downloaded. Somebody else told me something else. So honestly, between you, Bill and Laura, you send me all the fixes that you've come across, because I'll pass that on to my grads.
Yeah, this particular fix impacted more than Brother. It
Yeah.
impacted HP, Brother, a lot of different printers, and it was because of an Adobe update that created a problem. And you have to uncheck a box. So Sid, I'll give you those details. Carol, I'll forward it to you as well. And it was
Please.
posted on the forums. And then somebody else is just asking a related question, which is somebody on Clubhouse said, well, you can just print everything on legal. And I wanted to say 2 things about that. One is, yes, you could print it all on legal and it will get accepted. However, first of all, it's hecka expensive, because only 20% of them are on legal sheets. And so that was a lot of money you spent on paper unnecessarily, number one. Number 2, the deed of trust, the recordable documents of the writers, they really need to be letter, because they're charged more, I believe, when they're legal size instead of letter size. So that could be another issue, which you may or may not have a rejection, but it's irritating, I think, and annoying for them to deal with. So, if you don't have a printer that's doing what you want, Page Separator is a software that you can also use to get it done if you need to, if it's like an emergency. If it's an emergency for me, I can print them all legal, and then I'll just print the deed of trust and writers separately. But I think that just making that your practice on legal documents is just not a wise business decision. There you go.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Totally agreed. And then also just a follow up on the Brother printer thing here. We had one of my students in California finally got to like the guy at Brother that design these things. And he says that we're actually using it wrong because most of us put the bottom or the second drawer as the legal, and it's actually supposed to be the opposite. If you put the legal on top in the letter size on the bottom, that fixes all the jamming problems too, which blew my mind too. It doesn't seem logical to me, but that's how they were designed to work.
I have one thing to say. Hallelujah.
Exactly.
Richard just posted the fix in the chat. If you save the chat, that's one way to get that information, Sid, but I know you. Go ahead and email me. I'll send it to you.
Very good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
See, mind blown. We learn something new every day. Doesn't matter how long you've been working in this business. And to save the chat, guys, if you're on a computer, you just in the lower right-hand corner, when you have the chat up, there's 3 little buttons. You can click that and you can save the chat with all the links and everything that I'm putting in there for you. All right, Sid, thank you very much. Linda Bartley Bailey, thank you so much for being here. What state are you in and how can we help?
Good afternoon. I'm in South Carolina.
All right.
First of all, I wanted to say I just purchased the bundle LinkedIn and the Sign and Thrive. So I'm excited. I'm waiting for it to come. Can't wait.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Thank you. My question is for Laura. Wanted to find out where the probate information for the wills and the specialty notary work, is that found on the legislative page or where could I find that?
Well, I would have to do what I'm going to tell you to do, which is you need to search it. Every state, you will find the probate code in a different area. So you would Google search probate code, South Carolina,
Okay.
right? And see what pages it comes up on. Because I don't know. I know you guys think I know it all, but I really don't. And Google's my best friend. And so whenever I have to deal with a state I'm not familiar with, the first thing I do is I go to town and start putting in keywords and doing the search so I can find it.
Okay, thank you. And also another quick question. I purchased the Laura the library. Does that give me access to you, like a call or something, or no?
So let me tell you yes and no. The answer is you don't have to buy the library to ever call me. You can book a call for free. Just go onto my schedule off my website and ask me a question. You don't have to purchase anything to do that. The second answer is if you purchase the library and you have follow-up questions, that's the perfect mechanism to follow up with me.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I am just typing in your website for coachmelaura.com, guys. Anybody who wants to book time with Laura, she's got slots available there. Plus, if you want to take advantage of her individual state-specific coaching programs, like if you're in Tennessee or California or Washington and you have state-specific questions, she has is it 1 hour or 2 hours, Laura?
It's 2 hours. The first hour is just spent
hours.
reviewing the statutes, and this is one-on-one. So you get me for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you about your statutes, how that applies to the notarizations you need to perform in your state. And then the second hour is spent with actual documents, some of them from your state, some from other states, so that you can actually apply the knowledge you have, which is what I found probably the most valuable piece of it, so that you actually get to practice evaluating what the wording says to us in the certificate, determining, do I have that notarial act in my own state? And if I do, can I use it if it's not my state's language? And if I can, how do I fill out those blanks? So I go through a whole decision tree of how to do that for people who just aren't as confident about their state statutes and how they actually apply in real life.
Yeah. Awesome. Heard great things, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly Nunnally from Atlanta. Always nice to see you on here. Love the flower today. What's going on? How can we help? Oh, don't forget to unmute.
Sorry. Thank you.
There you
Good to
go.
see you all. Yes, today's question is for Carol. A few months ago, I told you all that my husband assists me in the business, and now he's thinking about doing it full time, even leaving his full-time job. I wanted to find out what tips did Carol have for us as a couple to be successful running our business?
Great
A
question.
lot of experience working with my husband. I love it. I love when we get husband and wife teams because it started off with him driving me to signings at night in Phoenix, where we had just moved and I was a little scared to go by myself. He'd sit out in the car and read. And then finally, I mean, I was having so much fun with the signers that it didn't take long for me to say, hey, come on in. We started off with him filling in the journal and doing things for me and just, you know, paperwork kind of things. And it didn't take long before I trained him, and he started doing well, you know, and he started doing, and so we did it together for 7 years. We had a great time. We've been married almost 58 years, and I love my husband and wife team. So you have to call me, okay? You've got our number, I think. If not, I'll have to look it up. But yeah, we'll get you
Okay,
set up.
thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Thanks for being here, Kimberly. All right, Andrea B., thank you so much for being here. You want to unmute. Tell us what state you're in and how we can help.
Hi, I'm in California,
All right.
and I have a couple of questions. One question is with regards to identifying the signer, and I'm just trying to, you know, make sure that I'm clearly understanding this. So if I go to a signing and the signer gives me a driver's license and their name on their driver's license has a misspelling and the documents don't have that same misspelling, so I'm not going to identify with that license, but does that mean because he has the license, I cannot use credible witness?
Laura,
So
I'm
I
gonna-
think,
yeah.
yeah, I think I know what she's talking about. So here's the thing about credible witnesses. When you look at the oath and the requirements of using credible witnesses, it's because they cannot produce an approved ID. He has an approved ID. So the interpretation on that is, well, then you can't go to credible witnesses because the ID he has is an approved ID. He would not be able to produce something otherwise. I mean, if he could, then you wouldn't need a credible witness anyways. I think that's what you're getting to. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so, and so that is a little bit of that interpretation. The oath, part of the oath says that he can't produce the ID that I need as a notary, and it would be difficult or impossible to get it. But I'm not the one taking that oath. The friend, the witness is the one who's taking that oath, and it's in their opinion that that's not possible. So I use a little more leniency with that. First of all, I wouldn't even go to a credible witness. If it's a misspelling, I would be talking to my signer to know, why is it misspelled on your ID then? What's going on? You haven't corrected it? What? Tell me more about what's happening with this.
Right.
I really do take more time interviewing my signer in the identification process so that I can look at all the angles possible for me. So in California, that oath does include that one line, but that's being taken by somebody else, not by me. And so you can hard line it and say, look, he's got a good ID. I can't use a credible witness. You've got to produce another ID for me, or I will not be able to notarize it. The problem with being so hard lined that way, especially if his photo matches up and the physical description matches up and it's a valid ID, is that you're going to say no to a lot of notarizations out there because people have issues with their names on their IDs. And it's more, and by the way, in California, as it says in many of the states, satisfactory evidence, nowhere does it say a name match. It says you can reasonably rely on the ID to identify him. That's what the law says.
So then, okay, this is what happened. I'm relatively new as a notary. And so when that came up for me, I called the NNA hotline. And I was instructed by the person that answered that day that I could use credible witness. So I did that, but I wasn't knowledgeable enough to actually do that. So I did it incorrectly. But then when I asked somebody else about it, they said, well, you shouldn't have even used credible witness because he had produced the ID.
Yeah, but the ID didn't satisfy you. So you had the right kind of ID, you just weren't satisfied. And you can use supplementary, and credible witness would be a supplementary evidence to support that this is that guy. And yeah, if you couldn't find another way and you weren't confident or comfortable enough to just take his reason why it was this way, Get a credible witness. I mean, my job is to identify that signer and feel confident I've done my job on that. And if that means I looked at an ID, he told me what's wrong, I ended up getting a credible witness on top of it. I mean, you identified him.
Okay.
And if you call the NNA hotline, be sure and get Laura.
Yeah, you know, the NNA hotline is going to be very hardcore. They have a lot of new notaries who call them, and it's difficult because it takes time and experience to start making some judgments on your own. And so they don't want to counsel you, well, you could do this or this or this or this. Instead, they say, look, here's the path for you. And then it's going to be up to you to decide to use what they told you or to go your own path.
Okay. So another question that I have kind of stemming from that, you know, I realize as a notary, I should be knowledgeable and understanding, but still in the capacity of being new, that situation I do now know how to handle. But can I know there's, as a notary, I'm not supposed to refuse a notarization. So, but can I say, I can't do a notarization if I wasn't comfortable with doing the credible witness?
Well, actually, lack of skill is not a reason for refusal because
Okay.
there are plenty of resources. So you could call the NNA and they can walk you through how to do credible witnesses. There are on their knowledge center, they have videos and they have articles on how to do it. So that isn't a reasonable stop because there's a way for you to find out the right way to take care of it.
Right. So I understand how to do it now, but I'm saying in the heat of the moment when you're sitting at the signing table and you don't know how to do something.
I'm gonna give you the same answer. Well, you know, the same answer is, okay, you can't get NNA hotline. Who can you get? Where's your law primer? Where's your Secretary of State handbook? There's lots of resources for you available to walk through it and to do the best that you can with it. But I'm not going to say it's okay to say no to a credible witness if you don't know how to do that. You need to find out how to do that.
Yeah, I do know how to do it now, but I understand what you're saying.
Right, but before you didn't.
Right, before I didn't.
Yeah, and so you called the hotline. See, you did the right thing.
Right, well, the hotline was who told me to use credible witness.
Uh-huh.
So then the other question that I have is regarding, sometimes when I'm going through a loan package, there's a notarization, there's a certificate for notarization, and I was told it's considered a hybrid certificate because it has wording for both acknowledgement and jurat.
Yeah.
So when I come across that, I know in terms of me not being, I'm not supposed to pick the type of certificate because of the not being able to practice law. So how do you handle that when you come?
Okay, when we say you're not supposed to choose the certificate, that's when there's no direction for you. There is no certificate. When you have a certificate and you're just figuring out how to replace it with the appropriate one, you have notary training for that. And
Right.
Arizona
But what I'm saying,
I think have those hybrid ones, and the NNA has even published to replace it with a jurat.
so in California, if I get a hybrid, replace it with a jurat.
Yes, because the jurat says you watched them sign and you gave them an oath. So you've satisfied the requirements of taking an acknowledgement and giving an oath.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great questions, Andrea. Thank you so much for being here. All right, Anisha from Arizona. Thanks for being here. You want to unmute? We know what state you're from. Just how can we help?
Okay, hi. I'm just wondering, I have a sister that's in the hospital and she's unable to speak or write. How do I get anything notarized if I wanted to get papers signed or acknowledged or whatever for her so that I could be in charge of her affairs? Like, how do you do that if the person can't write or speak?
Ooh, great question. Laura, you want to take that one?
Well, I would have to look at Arizona law to one, see.
She's
if
in
she can't-
California.
Oh, she's in California.
I'm sorry. Yes, she's in California. I'm in Arizona.
You're in Arizona, but she's in California.
Right.
So in California, we could use a mark, which could be a fingerprint or a thumbprint instead of writing. So that's how you could take care of the signature part on the document. in terms of her communication skill, how does she communicate? If she's not speaking, what's her method?
She doesn't have one yet. She
If she
has a
has no
trach in her
method.
throat. Yeah.
If she has no method to communicate, she cannot get a document notarized at this time. You will probably need to seek legal advice about conservatorship, temporary conservatorship, or some way to be designated as the person to take care of her things. But a notary cannot notarize a document when they cannot have direct communication with that signer, because there's no way for the notary to know, are they in their right mind? Do they want to sign this willingly? We can't get the information back out.
If she could nod, that would be sufficient.
It may or may not be sufficient. It depends on, can she consistently do so with the notary based on a series of different kinds of questions to ensure it wasn't just an accidental nod
Yeah.
or in response to the notary's question. And I certainly would want notaries to be very careful before you would take on that kind of assignment. I have done those. One was blink in the eye, and I had to say no, because I couldn't tell when it was just blinking and when it was blinking to me.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I had to turn it down. That is a really tricky thing to ask a notary to do.
Okay. So
Legal assistance.
another, thank you. Another question. My HP laptop just died and I had to resort to buying an Apple, and the transition of learning one from the other is tremendous. So is it true that my Apple will never do the page sorting on my brother's 6200 or my HP 404N?
I don't like to use the word never, ever. So I know that some people have figured out the Apple dynamic with this thing, but it does add a layer of complication on it. I think this would be a better question for the chat window. Diane says, yes, Mac works with the 6200, but yeah, that learning curve, that's an ouch. Yeah, there is, yeah, guys, if you can help her out in the chat window, if you have some links to some resources, that would be really helpful. So Anisha, make
Yes.
sure that you save this chat so you have some resources there. But it is
I will.
possible. It just adds that extra layer of complication.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And it's not complicated for Apple users, right? Apple users just know this stuff, but
Yeah, it's just
I am not. All right, Kristen Benbow, great to see you on here. What's going on? How can we help in California today?
In California, it's actually no question. I just more of an FYI. I have called the Secretary of State a couple of times a couple of weeks ago to get some information about my my commission, and I was first in line. And then I called yesterday and today, and I was 150 plus. So something is going on for sure. I'm wondering in my head if basically there's a lot of people that are missing their commission. So that's all. Just
All
an
right.
FYI.
That's all I can tell you. New Secretary of State, COVID, they're just backed up.
Yeah.
And I would
Okay.
imagine there's a lot of people who just never saw it coming, right? So you got people who are like, oh my gosh, my commission expires next week.
Right.
And they're scrambling to try to
Notaries
fix
are
that.
like, oh, I could get this done in a month.
Yeah,
Right.
try 6 months.
It's
Yeah,
recommended 6 to 9 months out,
yeah.
Oh my God.
California.
California, 6 to 9 months. If you're going to expire this year, you need to get on it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yep.
John Hagler, nice to see you on here. You want to unmute? Tell us what state you're in and how we can help. John Hagler? You're muted still. All right, we're going to skip you. Dana Baker Reimer, thank you so much for being here, Reimer. Thank you for being here. You want to unmute? Tell us what state you're in and how we can help.
Good morning, it's Baker Reimer. You got the Reimer right.
All right.
So I'm calling from California, and I have a question for those that have AMROC. I'm just submitting and got the paperwork from AMROC, and in reading it, there's some insurance coverages that they're requiring that have got me a little confused, where they want to be added to my certificate. And I'm going to try and read it real quick. To this certificate, as that they'll be included as retentions applicable to coverage therein and thereafter. And then they also mention workers' comp and cyber liability. Is everyone signing this? Does this mean I have to purchase additional coverage? I'm just a little confused by the whole thing.
Great question. I'm not familiar with that. Carol, have you heard much about this for Amrock? I've heard nothing.
No,
on that.
sorry, had to unmute. I have not heard about those requirements. No, I haven't had any of my graduates who, a lot of them are working for Amrock. The only thing I know for sure is don't ever use an electronic journal. I think I announced it once before here. One of my graduates was making $2,000 a week with just Amrock. And they fired him because they found out he was using an electronic journal.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that would
I
hurt.
work for Amrock. I've not had to sign anything like that.
Okay.
So Dana, this could be any number of things, right? Could be just the wrong documentation. It also might be where they sent you the wrong package, maybe for a loan signing company or signing company instead of a
Okay.
individual contractor. I've
Okay,
seen that.
it does
It's
make
the-
sense.
The
It's-
qualifications are a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a 26-page package and I tend to be a reader. So those requirements caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat, I don't see anybody who's had to sign that too. So I think there may be a little bit of a mix up in the documents, but who knows? Maybe it's brand new too. So,
Yeah, I'll reach back out to Amrock and question it.
all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bill,
Yeah, thanks for bringing it to us.
Bill,
Yes, hi, who's that?
John's
this is
and-
John in Texas.
Hey, John.
I had a technical difficulty, so I appreciate your patience with me.
Yeah, no worries. What's up? How can we help? What state are you in?
What's that?
What state are you in?
I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.
All right. So how can we help?
So, yeah, we had a little bit of cold weather last week. I got away with one pipe having some issues, but it was far better than I'm so grateful and blessed that we didn't have the issues that so many people have so far.
Yeah.
But anyway, two quick things and then a quick question. Laura, number one, first of all, I was watching your 10 steps to a flawless loan signing from NNA this morning. Great information that you got there, and continue on with it. Secondly, though, is just that in doing confirming the appointment for the borrower, is there like a general COVID survey that we can ask or do with regards to asking them on how we can be able to perform that for them? Or I wouldn't want to turn it down, but I just want to make sure that both sides stay safe.
So first, I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. In the step of confirming with the borrower, asking, have they been ill or have they been exposed to anybody who's been ill in the last 14 days is easy enough to ask during the call. Are you asking about further safeguards at the table?
Well, I figured that if they're healthy enough, I mean, as far as when I'm asking them on the appointment, I just want to make sure that they stay safe, and as well as that I do. So is there anything else that I need to do even on the day of the appointment? Because I'm going to double mask. I'm going to do everything I can to keep myself safe.
Sure, John. And yeah, I do double mask, number one. Number two, I present documents from 4 to 6 feet away. I do not touch their documents. They handle their pile, I handle mine, so that there's less papers that I'm touching that they're touching. I come with my own alcohol. I know it sounds like a party, huh?
Woo!
Yes, I have an open container at the table that I can spritz my hands in front of them, my seal, my pens, all of that as well. So those are some of the other steps I take at the table.
Good. I just want to make sure I heard you then. So you're basically handing them the executed copies, and then I would be going through the second copies as far as all the documents. Let them sign them, double check them once it's over with, and then be able to go from there, right?
Right. So I'm navigating the stack as they are. My stack looks just like theirs. So I say, hey, you're looking at your note. Here's your loan amount. Here's your interest rate. Here's when your first payment is. That all looks good. Let's go to page 3 or 4, whatever it is. You're going to sign and date. Let's move on. So I don't have to be on top of them to do that.
Perfect.
No, I'm going to be out of here.
The other quick question.
Yeah, I'm almost done.
Is there I keep hearing like a deadline for refis and things like that? Is that something specific to dates?
Are you
or-
talking about the right to cancel?
No, no, this is where I keep hearing either through the Sign and Thrive or general emails throughout what I find, is that is there a specific date as far as when people can complete a refi? I know my microphone's having issues.
No,
Sorry,
so
I'm not really understanding your question.
I've got it, Laura.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So what we're talking about is the last day to sign refinances, and that is due to the right to cancel, and it's a combination, due to the right to cancel and standard business hours for a bank. So that's why this week, yesterday, was the last day to sign a refinance. Now, that's not a blanket statement. Some refinances can be signed whenever because there's no right to cancel.
Right.
But if you're a primary residence where you're refinancing outside of your first bank, then you're going to have a mandatory 3-day right to cancel. And in order for that to fund, you would have had to have signed yesterday. So you'd have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the rescission, and then it would fund on Friday because most banks are not funding on the weekend. That's how that works. So every day, every month, it's going to be different. Like in March, it's going to be Friday, March 26th. It's not going to be the 22nd. It changes every month. And that's why I send out those YouTubes and those emails so you can be ready for it. But like everything else in this business, guys, there's no blanket statement. Just because we can anticipate that that particular day is going to be busier than others, it doesn't mean that signings aren't coming in the other days too.
Right.
There's lots of investment properties right now. Investment properties don't get right to cancels. So they can sign whenever, they're funded right away. Vacation homes, purchases, all of those that do not have right to cancel.
Okay, I figured it might have been something like that, but if I don't ask the question, I'll never know.
Yeah, no problem. That's what we're here for. Thank you, John.
Thank you guys, y'all are awesome.
All right, we got about 3 more minutes. So Rob Zakowski, you might be our last question. Thanks for being here. Good to see you on the camera. Unmute, tell us what state you're in and how we can help.
I'm in Missouri. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay. So I actually have, hopefully these are short, quick questions. One is I've signed up for 2 companies that have had me fill out the Fidelity paperwork. So do they send it off to Fidelity and Fidelity will email me? How will I know if I'm ever approved through them?
Yeah, good question. Laura, I'm going to let you take this one if that's all right, because you're the...
Well, no, I'm not the expert, but I have been through it. But
Yeah.
what I would say is, what were their instructions? You know, everything we do in life as a notary is we follow the instructions that somebody else gave us. So
Well,
when they gave you the paperwork, what did they tell you to do with it?
well, so they sent it in their onboarding packet, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I just filled it out and uploaded it to their system.
Okay, well then you've done what you need to do. I don't know because I didn't see the package. I don't know the company. So I don't know if that means you'll be Fidelity approved for the signing companies, is where they signing services.
Yes.
Yeah, you're probably going to be Fidelity approved under them rather than direct. But you know, that's not a guarantee. I'm not looking at what you did. So usually when it's direct, I have a contact. They've reached out to me. They sent me that, and it's going to corporate. It's not going to a signing service.
Okay.
In other
and then
words, you have to keep signing up. If you are Fidelity approved only through these companies, you may have to continue doing that with every single signing company that you register with.
Right.
So in order to get Fidelity approved for yourself, you have to go through Fidelity Title.
Usually,
Yeah, well,
usually it's going to be a relation. I'm sorry, go ahead, Laura.
I was going to say, usually you don't get to go through. You're going to be sponsored or referred by an escrow officer or a title officer.
Okay.
Who say, I want to work with this guy. I want him to be approved. They initiate the communication with corporate, and then whoever that corporate person is, they will send you what they want from you to make that happen.
Okay. And then gas prices are starting to climb. Here in Missouri, we're at $2.45 a gallon now.
Oh God, I
So,
that.
so I see all these signing companies still sending out the same amounts on their stuff. So do you know, when gas prices and stuff have gone up before, have you seen these companies increasing their pay when cost of living goes up?
No,
No.
you have to ask it for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, and I do quite often, and sometimes they give it to you, and sometimes you don't hear back from them.
That's right.
So I was curious about that. But my last thing real quick is, and it's for you, Laura, was, so yesterday I did a signing and they had two notarizations on top of each other. So one said, I think it was borrower, buyer/borrower, or seller/borrower, and with a jurat. And then the bottom one said either buyer or seller with a jurat. So I was the borrower, so I filled out the top one. Should I have lined an X through the bottom so that that's not an open jurat on the bottom of that page?
Well, the bottom jurat wasn't signed or stamped by you, so it's not usable.
Okay, I know that, I think you or Bill or Carol, I've done Bill's and Carol's programs, so you're supposed to write, like, make sure that this form is either stapled to another form if it's just the certificate that comes with it behind the document, or you're supposed to write.
You weren't saying this was a separate document. You were saying that both of these were on the page. I heard you say they were both on the same page.
Right.
So I don't need to do anything more, but you're right. If it was on another page that's attached and I'm going to use it, then I need to indicate what it belongs to.
Right.
But you still.
Well, that's the only thing I was worried about, was because if you have an open one that's below that one, they could cut it off, I guess, or whatever, and use it.
Well, who cares? It didn't get used. It wasn't used. We don't really care what that one is. We care about the one we did. And is
I
it
just want to make
connected
sure
to our-
that.
Yeah, document.
All right.
But
Thanks.
that's okay, Rob. You know what? Maybe Carol has a different opinion. Carol, you still with me?
No, I think.
I am, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
There's really nothing more to say.
So Rob, like the issue would be fraud prevention, right? And your stamp is being applied to the upper certificate. So if they came back and said, oh, we're going to have the seller sign this one and they're going to have their own notary to notarize that, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to strike through it. It could be usable for something else behind the scenes. You've already used yours and that's all you have to worry about.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you so much. I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody this week. We're here the same time next week, same time, same place. We've got a special guest, Carrie Rivera from notaryreviews.org will be here. Carol, Laura, thank you so much for all the time you commit to our notary community, and to all of you who joined us. Thank you so much for growing yourself and your business on the Tuesday. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye.